Hello everyone, it's me, Ari Dawson. You can call me Rashid. Perfectly fine. I'm an anthropologist and sociologist, and it's the 4th of July today. So for the American subscribers of mine, it's your quote-unquote Independence Day. So I want to use that occasion for this live stream. That's why the live stream is also called 776, and it's also my free day today. I'm off work, and I had a great day also. But before I continue, can you all hear me clearly? Let me know, please. I have a new webcam over there. There's also a microphone installed in the webcam, so you should be able to hear me through the webcam. But let me know if you can hear me clearly, please. Let me know in the live chat. Thank you very much. Confirm to me whether you can hear me clearly or not. I can see the live chat right over here. Okay, Maria can hear me. Can the rest hear me too? Let me know, please. All right. Good. You can hear me. That's good. 1776. That's in the late 18th century. Let's do a small calculation here, shall we? It's a bit muffled. Okay, I want you to say these things from the start. So hold on. Um, all right. What about now? Can you hear me better? Can you all hear me better now? Let me know in the live chat, please. I haven't received an answer yet. Can you all hear me better now? Okay. But anyway, okay, let's continue. 1776. Again, we will do a small calculation. So I'm getting my calculator with me. So we know we're calculating it well. Hold on. Where's my calculator on my phone? It's 2023 now. Yep, as you can see, 2023 minus 1776. 247 years. That's the age of what they call the United States of America. 270 years, 247 years. Okay, 247 years divided by 20. That's around 12 generations. Okay, each generation is 20 years. But it's around two lifetimes because a human being lives a maximum of 120 years according to the Bible, so that's two lifetimes, full lifetimes. If you want to divide by 80, so the common lifetime that people have today is three lifetimes. So the age of the United States is two or three lifetimes of a human being, which is around 13 generations. It is a long period of time. It's not a very short period of time, that short, but it's not that long either. There are nations who are much older. I'm not going deep into the, the happening surrounding the 4th of July of 1776. One question I want you to answer me live, especially your American subscriber, answer this question to me. What does 1776 mean to you on a daily basis? I will give you 2 minutes to answer this. What does 1776 mean to you on a daily basis? Let me know in the live chat. What does 1776 mean to you on a daily basis? I'm going to mute myself for 2 minutes and I want you to answer me. One moment. I'll be right back. Yes, I'm back. So let me see what the answers are. One moment. So I don't have many answers, I've noticed. One individual said, on a daily basis, I never thought of 776. Okay. Okay, someone said, it doesn't ring good, but the acknowledgement of birth of a nation. Okay. Now, the reason why I asked, what does 776 mean to you? Because a national myth, I want you to repeat this in a live chat because it's very important. A national myth is a story invented to shape the public's behavior. Write this down in the live chat. A national myth is a story that is invented to shape the public's behavior. Write down the live chat, please. Write it in the live chat for me. Repeat it in the live chat. So I want you to repeat it. It's very important. I repeat it one more time. So I want you to write it down in the live chat for me, please. A national myth is a story invented to shape the public's behavior. Joy has repeated it. I want you all to repeat. It's very important. Now, why is it important to know what the national myth is? Because a national myth is used by society to mold you into a certain individual. So let me give an example of ancient Rome. I know ancient Rome is in the ancient times, but I want to use it anyway. Ancient Rome began as a Greek colony. As a Greek colony, it had a mixed population. So you had the Greeks having babies with non-Greeks. So it was a mixed population, mixed Greek population. So ancient Rome was not white, as many people claim it is. No, it was a mixed population. At some point, due to likely financial, political reasons, the colony Roma was abandoned. As a result, you had a lot of infights that happened. And the public turned this violence against their neighbors. And that's where they got this story from of Romulus and Remulus were a twin raised by wolves. First of all, if there are actual wolves out there who find a twin baby who have been abandoned by their mother, they're going to eat them. They're not going to raise them. How can you have two men who are raised by wolves, which is an impossibility, and not also speak human language and different architecture from wolves? So we know that the story of the twin being raised by wolves is symbolic. We know that it didn't literally happen that way. So what was the use of this myth of Romulus, Remulus, and Romus being raised by wolves? Am I saying the names right? Anyway, what is the use of that story? Think about it. That story shows you that Roma developed into a predatory society in which they will even turn on their very own just to survive. Just like one brother killed the other because one brother felt offended by the quote unquote trespassing of the other brother. Now, in a national myth, it's not about who's right and who's wrong. It's about excusing the public. So in the myth of that twin that was raised by wolves, eventually decided to build a city together. One decides to build a city, the city here, and one builds a city over there. But they're the district over the border. One individual decides to ignore the border and gets killed. Okay, but they were siblings. Why couldn't they work it out? Why did one sibling kill the other? Because he felt upset. Well, that act of aggression is covered by the quote unquote offense, or he crossed the border. He crossed a boundary. Now, does crossing that boundary justify killing another individual? No, it doesn't. But it gives an excuse to why the other individual was killed. And this myth of Rome It's actually teaching all the children that heard it that listen, in this society of Rome, we don't care who's right or wrong. What's most important is that Rome survives. So if necessary, if you get into the way of Rome's greatness, we will get rid of you too. That is the message that that founding myth of Rome teach the children. So what happens is, as a result of this, hold on, let me try to shut this one down. As a result, the, the adults in Rome were raised with the idea that someone's quality as a human being does not matter that much. What matters is their strength and if they can contribute to society. Because it's the strength. It's the strength that keeps Rome going. So you see what I mean? So am I saying that in ancient Rome and also in the Roman Empire, you had no people that paid attention to someone's quality? Of course there were. Of course, where people pay attention to other human beings' quality. But the quality where someone said is good or bad was irrelevant to the fact are they powerful and are they a contribution to Rome. So the culture you developed back then was a culture obsessed with power and strength. So anyone that grew up in Roman culture would have likely developed an attitude of indifference to the weak and the poor. Why? Because in Roman myth, there's no pity nor sympathy for those that lose. Only those that win matter. It doesn't matter how you win as long as you win. All right? Now, so the core value of ancient Rome was strength. The public, therefore, had a fetish for the Roman military to preserve their daily ease. So that was the function of the founding myth of Rome for the Roman population back then, and also for the other people in the empire that were conquered by Rome. Now, let's continue. Let's go to Japan, for example. I'm going to use Japan as an example now. Japan may go around the year 189. Around that time, the Chinese Han Dynasty was collapsing. You had rising criminality in mainland Asia, and the population in the Japanese archipelago, they became afraid that the unrest on mainland Asia also spilled over to them. So you had 31 kings back then. 29 of them decided to join force together to form a political and economic unit. But they decided to let a witch become their head. There was this woman, she was, I believe, 18 years old. She was 89, no, she was 19 years old. She and a little brother performed witchcraft to keep the public at ease. And the political leaders, the kings and the other politicians, agreed to form a union under this witch. And this witch, as the witch queen of what became Yamatai, Yamatai turned to Yamato, she motivated the textile industry and also agriculture. Now, she died, then another witch queen came, and eventually the system was replaced by Korean princess who became dominant, and eventually around 600 AD, the Empire of Japan was established. So that was the origin of Japan. Now, it's not that how to say, it's not that desirable to the Japanese leaders of today to explain that the origin of Japan has to do with a witch that was conducting witchcraft in the population, and this witch was also deeply involved in sodomy. There's not something they want to say. So they developed this mythological figure called Amaterasu, this goddess of agriculture and textile. They developed this character, Amaterasu, to show how Japan began without actually explicitly telling people how Japan began. So in this myth of Amaterasu, which is based on Himiko, the witch queen or witch empress that found in Japan, what is the core value over here? The core value is work, or you say labor. It's labor that made Japan into a nation. So what will you get in a culture? A culture where hard work or labor is emphasized. So that's why you see in Japan that Japanese people are raised with an ethic to work a lot. And when you look at the country today, they work a lot too. So the founding myth of Japan, it refers to an actual history that happens, but they won't tell the actual history. They make up this character Amaterasu to kind of hide a, a portion of the actual history, but at the same time, they want to give the core value of how they want people to be today. So every country makes use of a national myth to shape the public's behavior today. The United States of America, their core value that they transfer onto the public is honor. The claim is that in 1776, you had honorable men that came together and agreed British rule. They were all British men, by the way. They were all British, but say British rule is too harsh, too oppressive financially. We're suffering over here, so we need to get rid of it. And we need to have our own country based on values of honor. We need to be an honorable people. And the myth says they fought very hard against their own British people. There was a whole civil war going on, and they fought hard to be independent. And George Washington is the hero of the story. That's why they call the capital Washington, D.C. D.C. District of Columbia. Columbia is Semiramis, Babylonian goddess. Why is there a Babylonian goddess in the name of the capital? Well, there's something for you to figure out. I explained already before, but go after it to find out why they did that. So, the founding myth of the United States is there to let the public in the United States today believe that that country has an honorable origin, and therefore the public should honor its government and honor its quote unquote leaders. And in America, you also had this ritual of pledging allegiance to the flag. I know a lot of Americans who told me, Rashid, I used to do that when I was a kid. Some tell me they don't do it anymore in the United States. I can't confirm that. But when you look at it in general, Americans, at least things have changed a little bit after Trump, but Americans used to be, and some senators are quite patriotic, pro-military. You come into Europe, there's no pro-military attitude over here in general in the public. So how come the United States in general, the public there has this pro-military attitude? It is because they were raised as children to believe that the United States is based on honor, and it is their duty as the inheritance of this honorable construct to keep the honor going. So the military reflects the honor of the United States. So of course you support the military. So do you understand now what I mean with national myths or stories invented to shape the behavior of the public today? Do you understand now what I mean with that? Let me know in the live chat. Let me know. Is the camera going? Hold on. Let me check the camera. Okay. I think that's better. Right, my fist. Okay, that's a better way. Do you understand now what I meant with that the national myth is invented to shape public behavior today? Now, the national myth doesn't have to be a story that really happened. Okay? It doesn't have to be. In the case of ancient Rome, there were no twin boys being raised by wolves in the wild. That twin may have never even existed, likely never existed. but the story is there to emphasize a code of behavior in the public today. National myths tend to last for a while because you can't change national myth just like that. Okay? Now, if you go, for example, to a place like Costa Rica, the Costa Rican national myth is that they got independence from Spain. Then it got independence from Central America, which we're part of. But here's the issue. What core value does this myth install in the public? Truth being told, Costa Rica used to be a Spanish province, was part of the jurisdiction of Guatemala. Guatemala used to be the kingdom that covered all of Central America. There was no independence, bloody fight to be independent from Spain. There was a cheat that happened. And later Costa Rica said, oh, Donovan, we don't want to be part of this. So if necessary, we will go our own way. So there was no glorious fight. So in Costa Rica, the national myth is that the public went their own way due to political circumstances around them. Because Costa Rica, as a problem, was all the way to the south of Guatemala, and Guatemala seems all the way up to the north. So in the history of Costa Rica, I'm not saying that there was this victim view, no, but they were more pushed by circumstances. I mean, look at Costa Rica today. Costa Rica has no military. Eventually, they abolished the military. Why? Because the military is there to defend a core value of the population. But because in their national myth, there was no core value to justify, eventually they had to give up the military. Because the military is expensive too. So the national myth of a nation determines how children are raised by the parents. It also determines the personalities people will have. For example, if you are from Canada, or your national myth is completely different than the one from the United States. So also the characters of the people may differ a little bit. Of course, you have Canadians and Americans who have similar characters. You have that everywhere. But their viewpoint of life is different. So the way they process things is different too. A lot of us don't want to admit this, but our background shaped us to what we became. So if we recognize certain faults inside of us, we can't put it all on ourselves. No, it is on ourselves to want to be better human beings, that's true. But we can't put it all on us that we made ourselves that way. We didn't. Your first name didn't even come from you. Your native language didn't even come from you. So if we've been shaped by the environment, and the environment shaped our personalities, our characters, also our view of life, also how we feel about things, then we must also gain knowledge in what shaped us. It's useless to say you want to be a better human being, but you're not even aware of what shapes you into the condition you need to improve from. The fact you want to be better means that you need improvement. What and who shaped you into this state that you need improvement now? It's important to reflect on all of this. Now, a national myth is always controversial. Write this down. A national myth is always controversial. There is no such thing as a national myth that is not controversial. Why is a national myth always controversial? Because it's simply not true. Let me explain to you. You have the real history that happened, for example, with ancient Rome. You had the Greek colony that was established, Roma. The Greek colony was abandoned. There was internal fights happening, and eventually the public turned on those around them and began to loot their environment. And eventually, the Roman military developed, Roman kingdom, on and on and on. They became a republic after like 500 years. They became an empire, dominated the world. So understand this, Rome did not begin as a world power, as a world city. It was just a small village at the Tiber River in Italy that grew into a town. and the time was abundance how Rome began. So Rome's beginning was not glorious nor magnificent at all. So the Roman founding myth, of course, everyone knows that no twain was raised by wolves, all that. But the story, the symbolic story of the twain raised by wolves, the one thing that's true about it is the value they're showing you, which is which is might, which is strength. But the story itself suggests a legitimacy, and that legitimacy is not true. Rome was never perceived as legitimate in the early few hundred years of its existence. Till the time of Julius Caesar, there were many inhabitants in Italy who wanted to get rid of Rome. And eventually the public turned on Julius Caesar and they killed him. Another Caesar, Caesar Augustus, established the empire and the republic. So now he used the founding myth of Rome in a different way. What I'm saying is, we today, when we read the founding myth of Rome and we look at how Roman history developed, how it became this empire that shaped the world, we tend to assume that Rome began as legitimate polity. It was not. Same with the United States today. When the United States was declared independent, there was no American people because the public there was British. It was a British population living in British colonies that had riots going on. And a few of those British men who were slave owners decided to write the Declaration of Independence. So there was no American people. You had a British population and also other foreigners living there that formed the population. Simple as that. So there was no American people. So if there was no American people, that means there also was no American Revolution. If there was no American Revolution, means there was no big fight against Britain. So the American Revolution, or the story of 1776, the story itself is not true. What is true about the story is the value that the public wants to transfer onto you, who grows up in the United States of America. So a founding myth of a nation is always controversial because the founding myth is always different from the actual history that happened. Because the actual history is often different than what the founding myth is telling you. For example, in the Netherlands, they talk about the revolt against Spain because the Netherlands used to be Catholic provinces that was ran by some duke somewhere in France. Later, it was ran by some German people living in Austria. One of those German guys grew up in the Netherlands, called Karel, in English Charles. Charles became the king of Spain, emperor of the Holy Roman Empire, lord of the Netherlands. So it was arranged that now, because Charles moved to Spain, that the Netherlands became part of the Spanish rule. So the public in the Netherlands never chose to be part of Spanish rule. It just happened. And the people there, and Spain was not a country. There was no country called Spain. Spain were two unions, Castile and Leon and Aragon. And so there were tiny countries in the Iberian Peninsula and in Italy that formed this union called Spain that was also expanding into North and South America and the Philippines later on. So there was no Spanish nation. There wasn't even a Dutch nation. So the story the Dutch people are told about the revolt against Spain, against the taxes, all that, there is some fact to it. There were high taxes under the successor of Charles, which is King Felipe. There were high taxes, and there was revolt from the public against high taxes. That's true. But not that it was a national revolt. There was no Dutch nation back then. So the actual history is not that glorious and it's not even that motivating. But it's the story about what happened that matters to the public. It's not what actually happened that matters to the public. It's the story about what happened. The story about what happened that matters to the public. You understand me? Repeat it in the live chat. It's not what happened that matters to the people. It's the story about what happened that matters to the people. Repeat this in the live chat. Please repeat this. Thank you very much. It's very important for you to remember. Repeat this in the live chat. I'm going to say it one more time. It's not what happened that matters to the public or to the people. It's the story about what happened that matters to the people. Repeat this in the live chat. Hold on. Okay. Okay, Joy repeated it. The rest repeat it too, please. So, Americans today, at least not all of them, but a lot of them are celebrating the 4th of July. Are they really celebrating the foundation of the United States of America? No. What they are celebrating is the story that shaped their character and daily lives. That's what they're celebrating. They are not celebrating the actual fun of the United States, because the actual fun of the United States was completely different how they were taught. What they're celebrating is the story that shaped them. That's what they're celebrating. So when they celebrate the 4th of July, what they're celebrating is themselves. The American public celebrates themselves when they celebrate the 4th of July. So that's nothing to do with Benjamin Franklin or George Washington or those men who have passed away a long time ago. It's that they were shaped by this story, and now they want the recognition for getting along with the story. And because they wanted recognition, that's why they celebrate it. So the celebration of the 4th of July is like a pat on the back the public gives to themselves, that, hey, America was founded on biblical honor, that's what they say, and we have held on to this honor by how we behave, and we've put up with the government, we've put up with the IRS, we've put up with the American military, we've been putting up with those presidents, we're putting up with a lot of stuff. So, hey, give some recognition. And that's why the US government gives them the recognition. Every year, 4th of July is a federal holiday. You can be free and can celebrate your nation. So, national holidays are self-congratulation that the public gives to themselves for getting along with the story. But here's the problem with the national myth. I already told you national myths are always controversial because the national myth is not true. Because actual history is different. But the story is there to shape the public in a certain way. So there's an agenda. The thing with the national myth is, as long as it's believable, it works. The moment the national myth is not believable anymore, that society and that country will begin to fall apart. Let me repeat this, because also I'm going to repeat it and also want you to know this, to write it down in the live chat. A national myth only works when it's believable. The moment a national myth loses credibility, that country or society falls apart. So write it down. The moment a national myth only works when it's believable. The moment a national myth loses credibility, that country and society will fall apart. Repeat it in live chat. Repeat. It's very important. I want to tell you why I've repeated that and why I want you to repeat it in the live chat. But please repeat it. I want you to repeat it in the live chat, please. Let me move my mouse a little bit. Okay. There's one national myth. There was one national, not really a national, there was one myth of the Western world that was often used, that they don't use anymore because it has been proven to be laughable, and it was the myth that Christopher Columbus discovered the Americas. Even though there was proof all along that Vikings went to the Americas, that there were Irish people who going to the Americas, that you had Greeks and Romans, even people all the way in ancient Egypt traveling to the Americas. So it has been proven all along that there were people in the Americas. And by the way, when Christopher Columbus arrived, there were Indians, there were natives there greeting him, indigenous people greeting him. So how come Christopher Columbus discovers a whole continent while already people there? It doesn't add up. They say by accident he discovered North and South America, even though there were people traveling to North and South America back and forth already. So the myth that Christopher Columbus discovered North South America by accident, why were they telling this myth? Let me tell you why. When you discover something, means there's no ownership on it. If I go out sailing and I find this little island and nobody lives there, hey, I can claim it. I can do what I want with it because there's nobody to stop me. Saying that Christopher Columbus discovered North and South America is actually to say that the people that were already living there had no legitimacy. So the European colonial powers did not recognize the legitimacy of the people already living in North and South America. And by saying that by accident Christopher Columbus discovered North and South America, they were saying that to hide the fact that Christopher Columbus was already aware North and South America existed, and it was a plan by the Spanish monarchy to extend itself financially. So that myth of Christopher Columbus discovering the Americas, they've abandoned it since the year 2010, I believe, or a little bit before that, because a lot of indigenous people in the Americas now are saying, stop this thing of celebrating Christopher Columbus, because that guy did horrible stuff. And he did horrible stuff indeed. So, and who uses national myth? America also used it to some extent. Also, European countries in Europe use it to some extent, but why? It's to justify the colonial exploitation happened later on. Because if you would tell the children that Christopher Columbus heard about conflict in the Portuguese Empire and he wanted to go and sail to the Caribbean to arrange things, but he was declined. He went to Spain and Spain found him. Now it's a whole different thing. Now you realize, oh man, this is the voice of Christopher Columbus. It wasn't so that his son discovered something. He planned to go there. So there was a bad intention from the start. This will make the children feel horrible when he is in school. So they're not going to say that. They're going to make it a beautiful story. He discovered America. So that's what I'm telling you. The myth of Christopher Columbus discovering America, it used to be believable. I don't know why that story was believable to people. When I heard it for the first time as a child, I was doubting it already. But eventually it became so ridiculous, people stopped using it anymore. And now there are even campaigns to stop Columbus Day, because some areas have Columbus Day, celebrating Columbus. There are now indigenous people campaigning to stop that. So a national myth is only practical and will only work when it's believable. And what you can see, what happens in the Western world right now, is that the founding myths of the Western nations are not believable anymore. Now, a country can alter or adapt their national myth based on the times they're in. They can do that. They can't do it directly because it may upset the current generation, but a country can alter their founding myth over time. This happened with Russia also. Going from Kiev and Rus towards the Moskva, the Principality of Moscow, I believe, something like that. Then became the Tsardom of Russia, Russian Empire. Then changed into the Soviet Union. Now Russian Federation. So Russia went through And throughout every transformation, they had to alter their national myth to fit the times they were in. When Lenin took over the Russian Empire after Russian imperial family was killed, I mean, other Russian aristocrats were killed also, the founding myth of the Russian Empire being this Christian beacon of light to lighten the world, it couldn't go anymore because there was no emperor. So they had to come with something that was in fit with socialism, the workers' cause. So the founding myth changed. Now, right now, Russia, the Russian Federation, is going through another crisis. That's why you have the invasion of Ukraine that happened. And now they need to solidify the founding myth. Now the founding myth is we need to denazify Ukraine. We need to demilitarize Ukraine. Ukraine is taken over by the Nazis. America is using Ukraine to hurt Russia. That's why we need to fight against Ukraine to purify Ukraine, all that. So now Ukraine is being used as a means to reinvent Russia as a nation. And the annexation of those territories of Ukraine is also to justify this new founding myth that Putin wants to enforce. So understand this. When countries or nations tend to be in crisis, they tend to solidify their founding myth. Or if that doesn't work, they wish to alter the founding myth. What happens to the United States of America now is that their founding myth does not work anymore because their founding myth is so far from what really happens that a lot of people are so shocked and heartbroken when they found out. When I explained the actual colonial history of the British Empire and how it unfolded in North America in the 1770s, the 1780s, when I explained that to people, if you got very quickly on the main sheet, it seems like Britain abandoned those 12 colonies so they can save money for Australia. Because the British Empire needed a project to cement the relationships with the Scottish and the English. Because Great Britain was a unification of the Kingdom of England and the Kingdom of Scotland. But the Scottish never wanted to be part of this union. So Britain still had to convince the Scottish people that it's worthwhile to be British. They want both the Scottish and English to operate as one people, the British. But the Scottish did not want to be part of this people called the British. So they had to convince the Scottish people it's worthy to be British. So they needed a new military adventure to prove the British Empire was worth it. And Australia was this new project. But for this new project, Australia to work, they had to reinvest, they had to relocate their resources towards Australia. To do that, they would have to give up one of their other territories. And guess what? After long debates, there were British men in North America who wanted to keep slavery, by the way, that came with a solution. We declare this area independent. We want autonomy from the British Crown. We can keep slavery in return, and the British Empire can continue with solidifying itself. So when Americans actually found out the true colonial history of what happened, now the United States came into being, they're often shocked, heartbroken, thinking, no, this can't be true. Because they were told their whole lives it was this big bloody fight for financial liberty, financial freedom, I mean. But once you realize that this whole fight for financial freedom never happened, there was an American Revolution. Now, your personality, your character, the way you see yourself, who you are, has to be reinvented too. So right now, the United States is in a crisis because the national myth does not work. Now, it would be one thing to change the national myth. The problem is that the United States population is so diverse that to have an inclusive founding myth, because the founding myth America has been running on since 1776 is mainly Eurocentric, folks on Europeans or white folks for the most part. So for them to have an inclusive founding myth now, it's going to be quite difficult to generate. And a lot of people don't want to let go of the white supremacist founding myth that America was founded upon. They don't want to let go of that. And that's why you have this big back and forth in the United States that goes on right now. So do you understand the current situation of the United States right now? After I give you this anthropological insight, do you understand now why the United States is in such a crisis? Let me know in the live chat. Do you understand it now? When Donald Trump, who has been a Democrat his whole life, by the way, when he came and said, let's make America great again, he was referring to a time period somewhere in the 1970s where everything was so financially smooth. But during his campaigns of Make America Great Again, he began to give credit to the Black community often. So Trump took an inclusive approach. And the inclusive approach that Trump took is different from the white supremacist exclusive founding myth that was invented in 1776. Because remember, many of the so-called founding fathers of the United States were slave owners. So Trump did not actually want to re-establish the United States. Trump wanted to shape a whole new United States, which was more inclusive, where some elements of the previous United States would be a bit more different. But guess what? The population wanted to hold on to the old United States, while Trump tried to reshape it to a new United States was more inclusive. So this is what I want you to understand. The reason why Make America Great Again became this big political cult that many people are part of till this day is because they still hope they can reestablish the 1776 myth. That's what people still think they can do, even though Trump himself wanted to push into a new direction. So it's this stinginess, this stubbornness of the American public that causes their country or their union to collapse. Instead of adapting to a new national myth and become more inclusive, they will hold on to the quote unquote good old. Hold on. They want to hold on to the good old days, which weren't that good to begin with. You follow me? So that's why it's no use to have political debates or arguments with people about it. Because the foundation of the country cannot work anymore. I mean, when the United States was established, okay, let me open up the screen again. I want to show you something, by the way. Okay, let me share the screen. Hold on. Percent, share screen. Hold on, let me see. Okay, let me share it. Hold on. Can you all see the screen? Please let me know if you can see the screen. You can all see the screen, let me know. Sometimes StreamYard's malfunctions, want to know for sure. Okay, 776. Okay, I guess many Americans already know this painting. And by the way, on the wall, you see the British flags over here and the flag of England. Okay, British men is what they were, British. Okay, and here you go. Let me see if I can. Hold on, I'm not sure. Let me just make this bigger, please. 1 moment. So I want you to see this very well. This was the United States when it began. This was an Indian reserve. This was areas where the natives lived for the most part in their communities. West and East Florida was Spanish territory, was Spanish Empire. Quebec province, Canada was British fully. These were British provinces, all of them. Maine was part of Massachusetts. Vermont became an independent republic, was thinking about joining Canada as a colony again. They didn't want to be part of the United States. Rhode Island didn't want to join. North Carolina also didn't really want to join the Union. So this was the United States officially. And the ports back then were quite small also. So if you came up with a founding myth, like they did about British white males that are fighting against their own white British king and they're upset, that's why they want their own country based on honor, okay, that can work because most of the people that lived over here were British people. But, okay, let's see if I can go back over here. United States. Let me type it today. This is United States today. All of this over here is part of the Spanish Empire. That's why a lot of the Spanish Empire, Colorado, Texas, Nueva Mexico, California, Arizona, Nevada, Spanish. You know what I mean? So with the United States growing over time, becoming like this, and okay, also Alaska and Hawaii and those other parts, how come they're still holding on to the United States of this time? The founding myth is about the United States of this time, which are mainly occupied by British people that now call themselves Americans. If this how the United States was still this day, it would have been, I would say, perfectly fine to keep that myth. But no, over time, the United States grew more and more and more. So why didn't the founding myth change? It should have developed over time. Now, why did I make this live stream? I want you to have understanding of what you are dealing with. I don't want you to participate in a holiday or anything and you don't even realize what goes on. I want you to be aware. When you celebrate the 4th of July or any other national holiday, you're self-congratulating yourself for participating in the exploitation of the masses. That's what you're doing. And again, a founding myth is only workable if it's believable. Now, the founding myth of the United States was never believable. People thought it was believable through propaganda. But now, in the age of digital media, it has been proven to be unsustainable. So now a new founding myth needs to come. I don't see it coming without any bloodshed, to be frank. So, national myths are there to shape the public's behavior today. So, don't put too much belief in founding myths. Some founding myths are similar to the real history that happened. Some are. Some founding myths are far removed from what really happened. Think about the founding myth of Rome. Think about the founding myth of the United States. So where a founding myth is quite close to what happened, like for example with the Dutch founding myth or the founding myths in Eastern Europe, you can get along. Let's say if it's closer to the reality of what happens, there's not much conflict when the actual truth comes out. But if the founding myth is far removed from what actually happened, now the shocks will be quite big for the people once the truth comes out about the situation. So if you're in North America now, whether you're in Canada or United States or Mexico, listen, this is the era of disillusionment. People are waking up from the national myths that shaped them. And because national myths don't work anymore, and national myths were far removed from what really happens, now people have to reinvent themselves. So now there's a big fight to preserve the old. That's what goes on right now. So knowing what goes on, now you know how to navigate amongst the public. So I'm just telling the truth over here. A lot of those Americans who keep holding on to the founding myth 1776, a lot of them will turn reprobate over it and lose their mind. They're not willing to face the reality of the situation. So do not try to reason, talk to those people. It only escalate into further conflict. But okay, apart from the United States, I use the United States as a case study because it's the 4th of July today. So it fits the context. But it comes from any founding myth, any country. Now, founding myth can be close to the actual history. If that's the case, it's better. But sometimes it's far removed, in the case of the United States. Now, are there any questions about this topic? Please let me know now. Let me know in the live chat now. Are there any questions about this topic? Let me know. Okay, national myth and founding myth. A founding myth is a story used for any organization or society. National myth refers to when the founding myth becomes politicized for a country. That's the only difference. Mhm. So, okay, let me explain this. The story that was told to many Americans that before the 1700s there was only grass over there, grass and forest, with some Indians who were wearing feathers in their heads. And then you had those Europeans coming all the way from England, building cities, building roads, building everything. Then there was a conflict with Britain. They separated the United States, and now they industrialized. They and the blacks were slaves only, and now they were liberated, and now America got expanded, became a superpower. The idea that before the 1700s there was totally nothing over there but just grass and Indians wearing feathers in their heads, that's also part of the founding myth of the United States or the national myth of the United States. And now the proofs comes out that there were structures, kingdoms, and trade, all of that before the 1700s by the natives and blacks from Africa who were there even before Columbus. Now all that's coming out. The whole founding myth has to go. There's no place it can remain. So again, a founding myth is a story that you use to shape people's behavior today in either organization or in a society. And I didn't say community, I said society. Big difference. Community is the people living there. Society is an escape construct adults hold on to. When a founding myth becomes politicized by the government for the country, now it has become a national myth. That's the only difference. So a national myth is a founding myth that gets politicized by the government. All right? Fireworks were used in ancient times to scare off evil spirits, but in today's often used just because of the decorative purpose and to celebrate the fact that they're there together. All right? Any other questions? Let me know. No other questions? Anyway, if you're celebrating the 4th of July today, whether you're American or not, okay, you want to celebrate, you celebrate it. I have nothing against you celebrating it, but just know why you're celebrating it and what's really behind it. Hey, China can also play the live stream when it's over. Just watch the replay. It's going to be good. Well, thank you all for being here. Keep on agreement with Christ, and I'll see you next live stream. Shalom. God is good all the time. Amen.